I'm Michael Franzese, a former maid boss in the Colombo crime family starting in the early 80s. IAmA. I'll begin answering questions at 2 PM Eastern. Hi Redditors, I'm Michael Franzese. I'm here to answer your questions. I'm the son of one of the most feared Mafia bosses to ever walk the streets of New York. He was an enforcer known to be cold-blooded and extremely deadly. I followed in my dad's footsteps and took on the mob life. As a maid member I made money for the mob, tons of money. I know the mob life as well, or better than most. I'm also a person of strong faith. I'm ready to answer all your questions. Ask me anything you like. No bounds, no limits. I have been asked everything under the sun. If I choose not to answer I know how to take the fifth. I've done that many times in my former mob life. But I assure you I won't this time. So join me today and fire away. What was it like walking away from the Mafia? Was it accepted? Or were you threatened or hounded in any way? Also, what were the actual logistics of your gas tax scam? How were neither the IAS or any federal agency not able to successfully audit you? I struggled mightily 4 years after walking away. My father disowned me. The family put a hit on me. The feds tried to make me a witness. Lots of pressure. Very tough. And very tough for me personally. Even though I didn't hurt anyone, I felt like I betrayed my oath and it really troubled me. Only God and time were able to fix that. Gas tax scheme was complicated, but we were way ahead of the authorities. They could not figure out what we were doing. If my partner didn't turn snitch, they would never figure out the scam. Any fears about your safety today? I can't go back to Brooklyn to live, or in New York in general wouldn't last. But I don't live in fear. I'm a person of strong faith now. God has had my back. Remember, I'm the only made man, a Kapora Jaim, that I know of who has walked away from the life, publicly, not entered a witness protection program and lived. It's a God thing, my friend. Not coincidence. If you listen closely, you can hear the sound of thousands of Redditors' brains imploding. Any stories of interaction with other organized crime families, such as Russian mob, Yakuza, outlaw bike clubs, Mexican prison gangs, etc. A million. Spent 20 years in the life. Organized the Russian mob from Brighton Beach in the gas business. Best partners I ever had. I taught them how to defraud the government out of hundreds of millions of dollars of tax money back then. They now are deep into Medicare fraud, setting up fraudulent medical clinics all over the country. Would take hours to tell you all the stories. Take care. Does the Mafia still have a big presence in the US? Are they just better at hiding it now? Yes. Not nearly as big as when I was active in the 70s, early 90s. But still exists. Don't count it out. Very resourceful. What is the process of becoming a made man like? Very intense, very solemn, very serious. I took an oath with a picture of a saint burning in my hands. My thumb was cut with a knife and blood dropped on the floor. The oath is never to violate the Brotherhood of La Cosa Nostra. What is the scariest situation you have been in? Walked into a room one night and thought I was going to get killed. I was called in by my boss over money I generated in the gas business. That's how it goes. You walk in and never walk out when you are in real trouble. I was in the right, proved it, and here I am. But, brother, my heart was pounding, knees weak. Still don't know why I went. I guess just a product of my life back then. I see this question asked all the time, but never to a legitimate former Mafia boss. How accurate are most mob movies / television shows? If you could recommend one to watch for authenticity, which would it be? Most authentic, Goodfellas and Donnie Brasco. They mention my name in Goodfellas. The bar scene. I knew those guys very well. My era saved Henry Hill's life 2x. I knew Paul Verio and Jimmy Burke well, also. And Left Guns Ruggiero was a good friend. Those two are the most accurate depiction of that part of the life. Getting affirmation that Goodfellas is the truest mob movie from a real life mob boss. This is now my favorite Ask Me Anything. Thank you. Stay in touch. How can I tell if the steakhouse across the street from me is a mob joint? Are there any telltale signs? It supposedly was a hotspot in the 80s and is still rumored to be. Easy who hangs out there. Mob guys like to eat where they are comfortable with ownership and the clientele. And of course, the food has to be good. Where Hoffa at? They will never find Hoffa's body point, trust me on that one. What was the main appeal of joining the mob for you? Money? Power? Following your dad's footsteps? I joined to help my dad get out of prison. Plain and simple. The money and power came for me later on once I got in. I wanted both. How old were you when you first realized something was different about your family, and what made you realize it? Very young. My dad was super high profile. Like the John Gotti of his day. Law enforcement always after him and sitting outside my house. Many incidents with them. Didn't like them very much when I was a kid. Got into fights in school when kids made remarks, but I loved my dad. Made me tougher. Kids would attempt to bully you because your father's a mob boss. Brave kids. I'm aware that you spent approximately 3.5 years in prison. How were you treated by the other inmates that were aware of your past? I spent almost 8 years in prison, 5 years, then 3 on a parole violation. I had a lot of publicity. I had a pedigree going in. I was treated well, with respect because I treated other inmates well. Respect is a big thing in prison. FYI, both John Gotti and Carmine Pacifico, my former boss, were both smacked around in prison. Guys doing life without parole don't care who you are. If you disrespect them, they have nothing to lose. Didn't hurt that Fortune magazine named me as one of the 50 most powerful mob bosses in the US. Did you, or other MAID members, get an actual salary, or did you just have access to any money you needed? If you did get salary, was it based on what you brought in? And how much was your salary? Do you have a relationship with your father? How thin can you cut your garlic? No salary you earned for yourself, unless you were the boss. Most Goozy were not good earners. Trust me. Yes. He's 96 years old, and still in prison. Very thin. We mob guys are experts at cutting garlic. We all know movies like The Godfather and shows like Boardwalk Empire are a romanticized version of the golden age of the Mafia. The Sopranos, on the other hand, has been praised as being a very authentic mob show. My question, how accurately did The Sopranos portray the inner workings of the mob? The best thing about The Sopranos was how he interacted with his family. Mob guys also had family issues. The business stuff was not realistic. Made them look incompetent. Some guys were, but others were pretty darn smart. Any funny Mafia stories? What would be the lighter side of organized crime? A million of them. Mob guys can be hilarious. Read my book. I'll make you an offer you can't refuse. Lots of stories in that one, like in all of my books. Your naked plug is pretty hilarious in and of itself. If you had it all to do over again, would you make the same choices? Was the lifestyle worth all the trouble you went through? Life on the street and in the mob is a dead end. Prison or death is the way it will end today. I would not go into that life, knowing what I know now. I try my best to drum this into the head of our young people. Gangbangers. Not worth it for me, or for anyone in the life. Trust me. Do you ever see anyone from your old Mafia days? Every once in a while. I speak all over the country to thousands of people a month. I have had a few encounters. It seems that a lot of families have been destroyed by all of the bloodshed and corruption that Mafia groups like the Colombo family have perpetrated over the years, yet mobsters are generally romanticized in film and on TV. Do you agree that this is how these groups are generally portrayed? Do you think that this is harmful? What is your take on this with your new outlook on life? The Godfather did more to raise the profile of the mob than any other movie. Yes, it's harmful. The life should not be glamorized. Why? It's an evil life. Not saying the men are evil. I was one of them that happened to be blessed. The life is evil because people die. Families get destroyed because of a lifestyle I lived it. I know. What is the most unrealistic part about the Mafia as portrayed in television and movies? Really depends on the movie you're talking about. Goodfellas, Donnie Brasco, realistic. The Sopranos? If a mob boss was ever visiting a psychiatrist, he would be in the trunk of a car by the end of the week, along with the psychiatrist. But the family interaction was fairly legit. Are there mob groupies like rock stars have? And how? You would not believe the attraction to that life from men and women alike. How do you feel about your past? Does it haunt you or are you proud? Any regrets? I'm not proud of my past. My wife will tell you that I do have rough nights sleeping at times. Regrets. I would have preferred not to have gone through it, but I just move on and try to use my experiences to benefit others. Admirable. We all have baggage and life shapes us into the person that maybe we wouldn't have chosen. The real work is loving yourself in spite of what you have done. How often have you encountered corrupt cops/government officials? Has any nationally known incident ever been influenced by this? Quite often. They are people to. Everyone is capable of being corrupted, regardless of your career. But I have met many real good honest ones also. What timing? I just watched that program about the 10 commandments of the Mafia, and now here you are. Where did you get the idea for the gas station scheme? And since it was getting so big, did you have any sort of an exit strategy in case the authorities got too close? Or would you just keep running the scam until you went down with the ship? Who was the scariest person you ever encountered, and what made them particularly frightening? Gas tax scheme was 1 in a million. So much money. Better than drugs and a lot less ugly. A guy in the biz came to me when some other mob guys tried to shake him down and move in on his business. I chased the guys away, and the two of us devised this scheme to defraud the government out of the tax money on every gallon of gas. At its height, we sold 500 million gallons of gas a month and kept 20-30 cents a gallon of the tax money. Do the math. Lots of money. My dad was scary. Saw him go off on people point scare because he was no BS. He would do exactly what he said. No fear in him. How often did you partake in the traditional Mafia activities of eating gabagool and talking about gabagool? I'm Italian in every sense. Love the food. All of it. Hi Michael. What is your relationship with your father like these days? I know inside the American mob you spoke about it, but is there anything else you would like to add? Also, what was your single best day, money-wise, whilst in the Mafia? And finally, will we ever see the sort of organized crime capabilities that Cosa Nostra had ever again? Thank you. I still love my dad. He's in prison until 2017, when he will be 100, God willing. I feel a bit guilty I haven't visited him as often as I should. Just so burned out on prison. All my life. Since mom died last year, things have changed a bit between us. One day, I made over $3 million. It was a rush. No, the mob in my opinion will never see its glory days again. At least not in my lifetime. Thank you for doing this AMA. As a former member of the Colombo family, I'd like to know what you think is the future of the family, as they are the smallest in New York and constantly being hammered by the government. Do you see any family mergers, for example? Also, did you know Greg the Grim Reaper Scarpa? Seemed like an interesting character with his civil rights work and sociopathic behavior. Families will not merger. If the government keeps pressure on all the families, they will continue to weaken them. Columbus and Bononis are the smallest in numbers, but all the families have been hit hard. When you walked, did you have to leave everything behind? Everything, just about. What do you miss most, if anything at all, about being in that lifestyle? And conversely, what did you hate, or you miss least about it? And finally, what do you enjoy most about life, now that you are out of all that? I do miss the camaraderie I had with my guys. It was powerful. I loved the brotherhood among the men. And there were some good times. Yes, I do miss them at times. I hate the treachery, greed and the dishonesty. It destroyed the life. Now, I enjoy freedom, my family, being an encouragement to others and serving God. What's your very best life advice? For me, it's a faith advice. Make Jesus, the only man's man, to ever walk the earth, your hero. Emulate him as best as you can, and you will benefit as I have. Haha, let's test your pledge to answer all and any question. How much are you worth? And have you really quit the mob, or is this just deep cover? How many lives have you personally ended, and how many have you been responsible for ending? Who was the most feared mobster of your era? And why? How do you perceive films like The Godfather, Casino, Goodfellas etc.? Realistic to what percentage? 10%, 90%. Any opinion on the news that Pacino and De Niro are going to film The Irishman about Frank Sheeran and Jimmy Hoffa this year? Any fact that you know that could change the entire story, or anything you think must be included? Event, personality trait etc. Did you know I the man? Thanks for doing this AMA. If you have any of those mobster dollars hidden away I could do with a 100k alone. 1. I'm out 15 years straight proves it. At one time, I was bringing $8 $10 million a week into my operation. Had a jet, a helicopter, all the toys. Today, I work for a living. For myself but I work. Movie on my life out this year too. Tough question. Know this. You are part of the life. You are part of the violence. Third, there was no most feared. You feared your boss if you made a mistake or violated the rules. Tough guys who have no respect for other guys in the life always end up dead. The life is a real tough guy. Fourth, answered this above a few times. Fifth, haven't heard about the film Going Forward. Pacino and De Niro are great. But Pesci is the best mobster. You would not want to loan at my former rates. Lol.